Okay, good evening. This is the Rutland Town Planning Commission, and it's May 29th, 2025. Let's begin the meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone. I trust it's recording. First thing on the agenda, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Public comment, no public, but we have the spokesman for the Diamond Run Mall, the attorney for the Diamond Run Mall. So we can move right down to new business. And David Grayck, welcome.
Thank you.
And you're here to talk about the demolition.
Yep.
And the accompanying Act 250 permit application with that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So nice to meet you. Nice to see you. My name's David Grayck. My last name's a tough one. So
Sorry.
no. I was gonna say, this is a made up last name, so you can imagine what the original was. If that's what my grandparents came up with. So no offense taken here. What you have before you is the binders. We delivered them to the town office last week. And that is the Act 250 application for the demolition of most of the Diamond Run Mall, but not all of it. In case you're not aware, there's something called the Act 250 database. And I encourage all of you, as you continue to serve as a statutory party in Act 250 proceedings, that if you're ever interested in reviewing applications or permits which have been issued, including what you have in hard copy before you, that you can learn how to use the Act 250 database. You want me to speak louder?
Please, just a little.
I will. If you've asked, I will.
Thank you.
So the Act 250 database, it's a tremendous resource. And going forward, we're going to be here for this application. And we plan to see you again eventually for a Walmart application, but this application, which you have before you, is separate and apart from that and needs to happen regardless of it. So the basic point of this application is to come into compliance with what's called the 3-acre stormwater rule. And I see some heads nodding, and I don't see anyone falling asleep when I mention it, so that's good too. Basically, the state of Vermont furthered the goal of improvement of water quality by requiring facilities that had been built and are in existence to come into compliance with certain performance standards. And in this case, in so doing, the receiving water is the Otter Creek. So it's going to be beneficial to Otter Creek. And it just so happens, if you turn to page 80 of your town plan, which I assume you have. I don't know if you have copies with you, but page 80 of your town plan talks about rivers and streams and their corridors. And it talks about Otter Creek is the most prominent water course in the town, providing a strong visual focus as it meanders through the fertile farmlands along the valley floor. So, you know, your town plan certainly recognizes Otter Creek as a significant resource. And this project will benefit Otter Creek. So in that manner, and simply stated, I think the project is wholly consistent with your town plan. I find it hard to believe that your town plan would prohibit the improvement of water quality to Otter Creek through coming into compliance with the state 3-acre stormwater rule. So if anyone has any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer it. The application also includes the required documentation from the Department of Environmental Conservation. And the Department of Environmental Conservation is the one of the 3 departments in the Agency of Natural Resources. So you have Forest Parks and Recreation, Fish and Wildlife, and Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC. And most of the permitting that people will come talk to you about from the Agency of Natural Resources, the vast majority of it comes from DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation. And in fact, that's what you have in front of you. There's a solid waste management approval. There's a solid waste management plan, and those have been approved by DEC. There is also 2 stormwater permits. One is called the construction general permit. That's to ensure during the actual activity that there's not discharges of basically soil to waters of the state. And then there is the permit to come into compliance with the 3-acre stormwater rule. So it's a very discrete project. We're talking about demolishing most, not all, but most of the mall. The site plan is there. The Kmart portion will not be demolished. That portion, that's the way I view it, it's up towards the Spartan Arena end, right? It's up there. And certainly we're well aware of the issues which have been with the mall being used by people for improper purposes. And it seems obvious that by demolishing most of the mall, we're going to help address that issue as well. So I was asked by the chair to keep it short. I understand you've got some tough lifting to do later in the evening. The process that we're in is I'm here before you this evening, and I will be back in front of the select board on June 3rd. I've been in front of the select board twice. We've given presentations to the select board on essentially the full application that you have in front of you. And what's before the select board is what's called the Municipal Impact Questionnaire. And I'm not sure whether you're familiar with that. Does that?
Everyone got a copy of it.
Yes.
You've gotten a copy. Have you ever interacted with this Municipal Impact Questionnaire on Act 250 projects before?
Yes.
I haven't, yeah.
You, Boardman, Barbara, I know you have, but I just briefly, the way it works is as part of an Act 250 application. This is for every applicant. And again, you're a statutory party. So this is what you do, right? This is what you do. For every applicant, you go to the municipality and you say, will this be an impact on fire, on police, on waste disposal, on water services, all the municipal services, and it can also include educational services. So you can see that if you get an application that's proposing a 50-lot residential subdivision, well, you're going to want to make sure you have enough fire, police, and school capacity. If you're going to be having a big commercial project, industrial expansion, well, maybe it's a different set of issues. So we've provided the Municipal Impact Questionnaire, and that's with the select board. And my understanding from Barbara is that sometimes you chime in on whether a project is either consistent with the town plan or whether you think there's an issue with respect to the provision of municipal services. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good. So what I'm here to ask specifically is that you take the time to decide whether the project's consistent with the town plan. I think it is, as well as whether you think there are issues with respect to municipal services, and that you take a vote to conclude and endorse that the project is consistent with the town plan. And I think far from being a drain on municipal services, it's actually going to remove some of the problems, substantially remove many of the problems which have been relying upon municipal services. So that's what I've tried to do, and I think I did it in 10 minutes.
I think you did. Any questions?
Did I talk loud enough, Norman?
Yes, thank you
Thanks
very
very
much.
So some of the area that's going to be grassed over for the 3-acre permit,
Yeah.
some of that now has buildings on it and some of it has parking lots. Do I have
That's
that
correct. We
right?
can look at the plan. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and do you know offhand the acreage of,
It's on the site plan, so I wouldn't want to guess. Do you want me to, if you let me grab one of the binders that isn't being
Sure.
used, we can look at the site plan together?
Stay there. I'm ready to.
Oh, well, here,
I can-
you keep yours. I'm gonna take one
Oh,
there.
there you go.
'cause I'll be able to show it to all of you.
All right.
Let's see.
Difficult to
So-
see
so-
that small sketch.
Yeah.
But
So it's not just the asphalt, but it's the roofing also that's included in the acreage. Is that correct?
well, there won't be any, no, they're going to do what's necessary for the 3-acre permit before any new construction, if that's
Was
what
it-
you mean.
Yes,
Wasn't the question. Once it's done and once you look at the 3 acres, the roofing is part of the 3 acres.
It always is, yeah.
Okay. I
so
wasn't
this
sure.
is the one you want to flip to.
What page is that?
Well,
It looks like,
What page?
about halfway in.
Okay. I got it.
it's,
Yep, that's it.
going past page 25, Norman, look for around 26, 27, page 20. They're not, there you go. You're right there. It's the next page, I think. No.
Backwards?
The head there.
Yeah,
is
it's-
the map he's got. Right,
so the 3-acre permit was
This one?
designed to accommodate the impervious that's there now or after demolition?
No, it's going forward. So I just wanted to explain this page to you. So first, the Spartan Arena is on its own parcel. Okay? Then you can see where the Kmart box is going to continue to be there. So if you go to this one, it shows you the page before.
Mhm.
That shows you kind of the existing condition, right? So there's Spartan and this is the existing structure.
Mm,
There's Spartan. You can always use the Spartan as kind of like the reference point. It's got that funny shape. And then the existing, the mall is kind of like the bat wing, the 2 wings on the side and the central part. And so when you look at the 2 of them together, right? The way to understand it is that where you see under existing I'm gonna put this down. Okay, so when I make them consistent, right, using the Spartan as the way to line them up, you can see that there's an area of existing pavement and building which is going to become grass. Okay. And then you see the red hatched area. And that red hatched area is existing impervious surface. And after the demolition, it's going to remain impervious. And then you also see down in the vicinity of the red hatched area, the existing parking, which is to remain. Okay. The difference between what's up there now and what you'll have here is that there's going to be a 25% reduction in impervious surface. And that's how it's coming into compliance with the 3-acre stormwater rule. is through a reduction in the amount of impervious surface.
And the red highlighted area is likely where structure would be.
I'm sorry.
The red
The red
highlighted,
highlighted area is where what is a structure today and is impervious will continue to be impervious,
so there,
which means it could be structure.
but it
or
may not
Could
be.
be parking.
Gotcha.
Part.
That may
So
not be.
the structure would
Exactly.
go within that space of the whole impervious space.
Exactly.
Somewhere.
So when you're saying what would be left for future development, it's the impervious areas.
Gotcha.
Which consist of what will be after the demolition, basically, the floor of
Right.
the demolished mall.
Gotcha.
The waste management plan contemplates recycling, reuse, temporary storage. So the floor of the mall will be used for those piles.
Yeah.
And consistent with the waste management plan, those materials will be processed out. It's going to be Belden Construction that's going to be doing the work. And then once those carry out, it remains subject to future development.
Perhaps this is a little ahead of the game, but I'm concerned, or at least interested in what use do you see or is planned for the portion of the mall, which I believe you said was the Kmart portion, that will remain?
There is no plan. It's, no, you have to bear with me because you're asking, what will the future bring? And for that specifically, and right now, I can tell you that there is no plan. It is sufficient to leave it standing, both in terms of compliance with the 3-acre stormwater rule, and that there is a potential for future development. But at the moment, there's only 2 projects: a demolition, which is strictly the owner, and the anticipated hope for filing of a Walmart application before the end of the year. There's no other contract. There's no other deal. There's nothing else. With that said, are there aspirations? Is there hope? Sure. Joe Anthony, who has been associated with the mall going back to Damian Zamias, Fenard Zamias, has been working there, I think, for his entire career, would love to see future additional activity, and no one would suggest that that wouldn't be hoped for. But at present, there's no deal for anything other than a Walmart, and it's not like there's something in the works. So I can't give you any other answer other than it's being retained because it's still sound and it is available to be used in the future. But there is no deal, there is no application, and whatever might come in the future will be going back through this process.
Norm, so what is laid out here is you're actually dividing the mall into 2 parts with the grassed area for the 3-acre permit in the middle. So there's an entrance, to the Kmart and Spartan part of it. The 2 are not connected, right?
Sure.
And then there's the entrance to the southern part where the Walmart's going to be.
Right, and so whatever that future might, first of all, let's just be clear, it's not being subdivided. So when you say we're splitting it into 2, not legally, not at all.
Okay.
In terms of allocating grassed areas, you're right. There's a Kmart box that will remain. There will be grassed areas. There's the main entrance as well as the north side entrance. And don't forget, the Spartan Arena is up at the top where the secondary access is. So it's there. Whatever might happen in the future, including the issue you've identified, would be something that would have to be dealt with in the permitting at that time. So it's kind of hard because there's definite potential. And there are hopes and dreams and aspirations. But it's been a hard enough endeavor to get to this point.
Oh, my,
But this, I'm sorry, Norm.
my concern,
Yeah.
is the potential for some kind of continuation of the invasive use that has historically taken place there. And with a huge empty storage building, they just concerned it might be an attraction for the,
Okay, now I understand. Okay, so when you say invasive, you're not talking plant species, you're talking something else.
Yes.
So, yeah, no,
I don't have a better word.
No, no, well, okay, now I understand what you're talking about. There is no doubt that that has been an issue, and it's going to have to be addressed, both on an ongoing basis, regardless of what happens with the Walmart.
Yeah.
Even in the context of the demolition. There has been a use of that property by people for unlawful purposes, vagrancy purposes, the free expression of their First Amendment via graffiti on buildings. The demolition is going to reduce substantially the opportunity for all of that. There's no way yet to guarantee that people aren't going to find their way up there. There's also beneficial uses, like law enforcement uses it for training, right? So there is certainly that issue, and no one is going to be able to guarantee that people won't try and go up there. But the direction we're moving in is to substantially reduce what has been the attractive nuisance I think you were thinking about, as well as to manage the access issue, because there's a substantial property up there and there's real movement to making it viable again. And so the demolition project is the first stage of that.
It's interesting, Jerry.
Oh, I was just gonna mention, this plan does show though, Barbara, it does show a roadway connecting the two halves.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to make sure.
Oh, yes.
See that up to the front.
Mhm,
Not that that means anything, I'm just saying,
mhm.
which is logical. I
Yeah.
mean,
And the ring road, which goes around the entire property, that's, that continues to be. So that's the other thing that's really important to remember. Everything that's being presented to you and everything that will be presented to you, I hope, before the end of this year, because we'll be back when there's a Walmart application and you'll have representatives from Walmart with me when it's their application. It's all going to take place within the existing footprint of the mall, right? Like you could go up there today and you can drive the ring road, and everything we're going to come talk to you between now and the end of the year is inside of the ring road. Does that help, Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I didn't have that's what I assumed.
Yeah, good.
And it's a concern. I don't think we have any regulatory control over it with the planning commission, but I think that it's been a sore point and a point of concern. And if the Kmart building is not tightened, if access is not more fully restricted than it appears to be now, then whatever you put up there is at risk. And
Exactly. So I
So-
think you've identified what's going to be the solution to the problem. I don't think that there's going to continue to be the level of improper usage. It's going to be both through the demolition and the fact that there's going to be ongoing activity up there. And it's in the owner's interest, the Spartan Arena's interest, and any future leasehold interest to ensure that what's there is not being used the way it is. The specifics of that, I can't tell you, is it going to be a person up there? Are they going to board it up? Or will there be video surveillance cameras? Is there going to be an emergency, that I can't tell you, but clearly your concern has been well articulated by the select board and various departments. And it's one of the reasons that we've wanted to move forward with the demolition. Because there was some suggestion that, well, why are you doing this separate from the Walmart application? And the answer is because we want to come into compliance with the 3-acre stormwater rule, and because it's being used improperly, and we have a way to help reduce that. So that's why we're here to get the job done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. We'll discuss a motion. You're welcome to stay.
Yes, if you're going to do that now, I certainly want to see
I
it
think
through to
so.
conclusion.
I mean, the motion could be that, yes, this adheres to the town plan. There's no issue there. But as probably with other departments of the town, we still have some concerns, lingering concerns about police protection that.
What exactly is before this? I didn't understand from the agenda that we were to act on something. I understood this to be an informational presentation tonight.
We don't have to do it tonight, but at some point, the select board will be asking us
Whether-
what our contribution is going to be to this review for this Act 250 permit. And we've got there's the questionnaire, but I think you all remember, we've done this before.
It's been a long time.
The questionnaire might be, yeah, it has been a while. The questionnaire might be new too.
I would like to review this stuff before I vote on anything.
Okay. Guess that's,
But
All right.
others may disagree, and if we want to.
Well, here's the issue for what's going on. I'll be back in front of the select board on June 3rd,
Tuesday.
next Tuesday. You'd only meet once a month, and we're trying to get this done. And so, if you believe there's no issues under the town plan, then my request would be that you do that this evening. The issue of other municipal impacts, in particular, the issue you've been discussing and raised, is clearly going to be in front of the select board next Tuesday.
Mhm.
And it's something that is being addressed and will continue to be addressed. Criterion 10 of Act 250, which is why I'm here, because it incorporates the town plan into the Act 250 review process, is clearly what the commissions administer. And so at the very least, if you can provide that feedback via vote tonight, that would be of huge help, because time is important.
Are you open to that, Norm?
Yes, I just wanted to be limited to the town plan and none of the other concerns, which we just haven't had time to review.
I'm well aware that next Tuesday, the select board is going to be having an extensive discussion with me over what you're discussing. So, totally good with that. Totally understand what your issue is.
I mean, isn't it only logical that if the thing is cut down by 75% and their owners are going to be in their best interest to take care of it? That seems like a no-brainer to me. It really does. I mean, I can't imagine that isn't going to drastically reduce that. I mean, down to almost nothing.
I didn't mean to.
Norm,
I
you can
just-
speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification on the issue. I understand where you're coming from. I agree with you. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. It's just I know from the times I'm up there at the hockey rink, or I just go up there to walk around, there's always a stain. And,
I think of the
but
alternative.
I do understand that the threat's going to be reduced, or the impact is going to be reduced. And my interest is, and he can't answer it now, is what they're going to do in the future.
But think, I just asking, think of the alternative. What if it doesn't happen? Then
You're not under, I'm not objecting.
I know you're not. I'm just saying, to me, it's just logical. It's gonna help tremendous. I don't quite understand your large concern, because it's gonna make such a difference. As soon as they start demoing that thing, there's gonna be a big difference. And I don't see what other alternative there is. Leave it there and let it, so I'm only voicing my, I don't understand your concern there, but you're entitled to it, of course. So.
And if, when you're asking for clarification, you would like to know what? Tell me what you want more clarification. What's the specific information you're interested in?
Well, I feel, I just don't know the extent of what's going on. It is I agree entirely with Jerry that the situation is going to be improved dramatically by the reduction. I just was concerned about that huge Walmart space being vulnerable, the huge Kmart space being vulnerable. But it's not something that can be dealt with now.
No, when you explain it that way, I can assure you that it's not going to be unsecured, right? Like when you say vulnerable, I gather what you mean is vulnerable to intrusion or vulnerable to abuse with graffiti, okay? None of us can promise that people aren't going to slip through to do what they want to do, but in response to things happening, the property is and will be secured. And to the extent that people slip through and are up there improperly, or there's graffiti, it's going to have to be dealt with, and it will be dealt with. But this is an application for demolition, right? And so you're asking me what's going to happen with the Kmart box. Well, what's going to happen is that in order to make the property useful after the demolition period, pending what we hope will be an application for the Walmart and its eventual construction, it's in the property owner's interest to secure the building so it's not vulnerable, as you've been describing, and to use its resources in conjunction with municipal resources, because it is a taxpayer. I mean, I don't think you're suggesting that the mall owner is not entitled to rely upon fire or police services when required, right? So it's a question of how do we not create a burden for the town as it's more of an attractive nuisance or abuse of the property. But certainly if someone lights a fire or people are committing crimes up there, that is the obligation of municipal and state resources. So I'm trying to bring it to the sharper point that you're looking for and give you the information that you want.
I understand the nature of the request and the activity involved at this stage. And I was not, somehow my point got lost. I just wanted some idea of what considerations were being given. And I guess basically until the building is down, there's not much you can say concretely.
I think that's fair. I know that Joe Anthony of it's now A to Z Realty, Anthony DeZamias, I think is the A to Z. Stephen Zamias is part of A to Z. He's well aware. He gets the emails that come from the town administrator, which are coming from the police. So he gets them, and there are people who immediately respond to it. But, when an entire mall is plastered with graffiti and you're going to be tearing it down, they're not going to be up there washing the walls. The best solution is to get the thing torn down as quickly as possible. And yeah, the Kmart box is still going to be there. But the whole point is to move this property forward. Whereas it's been in kind of a waiting period. And so resources are going to be expended to secure it, because otherwise it's a wasting investment.
Thank you.
So when I did this agenda, I wasn't aware that it was, that you were going to be back to the select board next week. I know Mary asked all the department heads to look at this
Yep.
as soon as they can. But I don't see any reason why we can't do a motion in regards to it conforming, the demolition plan conforming to the town plan, or even add to that this evening. Since it is going to be a big item on the select board agenda next Tuesday. So is there anyone who would like to make a motion that it conforms to the town plan?
I think for the record, I would like to make the motion.
Okay,
Good oppose that.
is there, okay, did you want to add to that?
I,
That this group has concerns about police protection on the northern end?
let me think how to phrase it for a second. This is, let me think out loud.
Okay,
Motion to approve the application for the demolition. For the demolition. And
in respect to it conforming to the town plan.
yeah, and that it conforms to, as presented. And it conforms to the town plan. And we express our concerns about the remaining standing building and its vulnerability. Is that comfortable?
That would be great. I'm comfortable.
Oh, well, then we better make it a little tougher.
Yeah.
Is there a
Should've
sec?
waited for the second.
Yeah,
I'll second it.
thanks, Howard. Any further discussion?
I have a
Sure.
comment, yeah. There's nothing here that implies things are gonna get worse than they are, that things are not going to, that things will deteriorate in terms of our concerns and this. And there's almost that implication in the way we're saying this. The implication is that there could be some exposure that we don't have now that we're gonna have after this is done. Is that, am I just reading into that, or is?
Or that we think the illegal activities that have been going on up there will not entirely stop.
I'm not even sure why we should just mention them.
I'm in agreement with that.
That's not part of this. I mean,
I
Yeah.
agree.
and the intent is, there's nothing here that says it's gonna improve it or whatever. So we're bringing something in, from my perspective, that's not here.
And perhaps it's beyond our jurisdiction.
Oh, it is.
It's a concern I had. I raised it. I didn't expect it to erupt into the discussion. It was more of a point of interest than regulatory. But I'm happy to just reduce it and say it complies with the town. The proposed demolition complies with the town plan, period. And let the select board ask the other questions if they want to.
Okay, Howard,
Maybe
you,
that's basically within our jurisdiction.
you okay with the
I'm
change?
good with that, yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, yeah.
You sure?
Any further discussion?
Mary Jo. No,
Mary Beth, you,
No, I think it looks good. I agree
Okay.
with it.
All right, all those in favor of Norm's adjusted motion, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
I,
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay,
Thank you very much. You do minutes, does Bill do your minutes, and if it's possible to have it communicated to the select board for next Tuesday, that would be great. If not, I understand.
Mm.
I probably will be making a filing via the Act 250 database, which you can all look at, which is simply going to be to report that the Town of Rutland Planning Commission met, considered the application as presented, and determined that the application as presented conformed with the town plan. Is that consistent with your understanding of what you've done tonight?
Yeah.
And
We
I will
haven't-
adhere to that and
Oh,
make
yeah.
sure I don't incur your wrath. I once told a very good story about how you must never, ever, ever irk the town clerk. So now I can expand it to you must never, ever, ever irk the town planning commission.
No. Don't put us in that category.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Have we voted? Wait,
Yep. Yeah. 1994, I was a lister, and I remember being in the mall when 20-ton tandem dump trucks were going right down the middle of it when they were building it. Right from the get-go.
We'll have you back. Thank you.
Thanks.
thanks.
Okay. So I was really hoping we'd have a fuller house for the next item. The first item in old business. What to do with the subdivision ordinance, but I think we can get started. The way we left it last time was that, neither one of you guys
No.
were here. We were leaning toward accepting the town attorney, Kevin Brown's advice that, we scrap what we have for subdivision ordinance because it wouldn't stand up in court, and that we start planning for a what's called a unified development bylaw, which would include zoning and the subdivision, and perhaps some other ordinances as well. And what we wanted to do tonight was to start coming up with what our talking points were going to be for the select board. So for you two, is that a good path forward? For, you know, what is your opinion? It was the consensus of the group last time that we try it.
I didn't hear, I read the minutes, but I'm not aware of all of the conversation that went on and the reasons why for and against it. I just feel compelled to go along with the decision that was made.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. You can feel compelled to go
I-
along with what?
with the decision that was made.
I
On
agree.
the direction we're going in.
I agree. I mean, if everybody kind of thought that was the way to go, that should be the way to go. I mean, there is going to be even the word zoning is going to make an interesting talking point with the select board, but it's got to happen. So, I mean, it's got to happen that it's brought up. Doesn't necessarily have. So,
Yeah. And, you know, I did go to the select board a couple meetings ago to just, not really start a discussion yet, but to let them know that Kevin Brown has said our subdivision ordinance would not hold up in court. It's been changed so much. It has some zoning components, just like he told us.
And their reaction was,
And, Mary was like, yeah, I knew that. And then the rest of the group was like, whoa, you know, that's a lot. So that's all I told them at that point.
Yeah.
Hey, Barbara. Hi.
Yeah,
So I wasn't at the last meeting, but I was at the one before where we talked with Kevin Brown. And I agree with that we should follow that path. And I think
Okay.
it would make sense. I've thought all along for the river corridor, it would make a lot of sense to include that with that as well versus having a standalone ordinance. So it's a
Mhm,
good way
mhm.
forward.
And the special flood hazard area regs too.
Right. It just makes sense to have a comprehensive document instead of all these standalone ordinances. Yeah.
Right. Norm.
Yep. Has the select board seen Kevin's letter?
I don't know if Mary was copied on that. I have not given it to them, but I do plan on doing that.
Yeah, okay, that was one of my suggestions. If it wasn't,
Yeah, they definitely will.
I mean, Kevin's letter is very clear. I mean, you can't proceed and cover the scope of the existing subdivision regulations without a zoning ordinance. And then how you go about that, I mean, there's a whole nother question. And I don't know how much the select board expects or you expect to give them, but I would think they want to know what the cost is, will be. Study that. Maybe we need to get permission from them to investigate that.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me that that is going to be a significant question because we don't have, with all respect to due respect to Dana and Bill, we don't have the expertise to do it. And it's going to take some outside professional help,
Okay,
considerable.
considerable.
I would think so. And it's
Okay,
probably,
that's not a great selling point, but
I'm sorry.
that's not a great selling point.
Well, there's also person power. There's a lot of work there. And we're talking about people doing it, not even part-time, just some evenings. Just in terms of how we do it going forward, it's not reasonable to expect we could get it done by ourselves.
Right, right. And last time we talked about there would be a need for an outside consultant or possibly using the Regional Planning Commission. But the heavy lifting would be done.
That's
by
correct.
one.
And that I forgot to add that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But even if the Regional Planning Commission, it gives us a sample or a boilerplate
Mm-hmm.
ordinance to start up with, we're still gonna need help. Based on, trying to think, was it Bethel? Or,
Bristol?
Bristol, yeah. Based on the Bristol ordinance, which is 60-some pages long,
How many?
over 60 pages.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be 60.
Well,
We need to reduce. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
well,
Mm-hmm.
Small as
Jerry,
it can be
that-
and still be effective.
I thought that too, and I still may come to that conclusion. But Bethel and Rutland Town have the same population, and we are a much more developmentally diverse town. With lots of different,
But I'm sorry, population doesn't automatically mean that we have to have this extremely worded document. It's just my opinion. I don't see why that would, just because we develop, why, it doesn't. I mean, it's got to be effective. And if that's 30 pages, great. If that's 90, that's great. But I don't necessarily think that we should only pattern to the point that we get the appropriate things in there for Rutland Town.
well,
I
don't think we need to
Chairman.
debate that this.
I think we're way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, well, that's
Oh,
true.
yeah, I was
too.
gonna say,
And I don't agree or disagree on it, but I just think that that's a conversation we need to have later. Just getting us to a point where we are committed to do something, to do that and to get more details on exactly what it is and what it's gonna cover and how it's handled is a subsequent phase of this.
It's not my purpose to overcomplicate the situation. Or put forth any final approaches at this point. But it is much more of a task from what I have seen, both professionally and in the course of the work that Dana and I did and Bill, that it is an uphill climb. It's a major step.
We agree.
And I think they should know that and not be scared by it, but that's just scared off by it.
I disagree with that part of it. I think we need to get the understanding and the agreement to move forward and to go to the next step. And the next step will be that maybe. But to add that to deciding whether or not we're gonna have it is complicating it. I mean, let's do one step at a time because we don't expect everyone to
I guess I'm
accept this with open
Yeah.
arms. We need to do some argument. So I think we should put the focus on why we need to do it, not how. Why we need to do it. And then we'll go back to that and not leave anything,
And they may ask for a more full proposal at
yeah.
that point.
then we do it.
And I agree with you. It will take the smaller step, least complicated, see what happens and go from there.
Well, something that could fit in that category is that if a resident started having issues with a neighbor over something, we don't have anything to protect them or anything on the books that's going to withstand judicial review. That's one large overarching argument we could use.
And, there are probably several places in town that are really messy and ugly to the neighbors. And, just one family can really make a mess. And there's all of those that are out there. And I'm sure people would like to see that stuff cleaned up. Now, once we get going on this, we start working our way into zoning. Will that be able to be cleaned up, do you think, or how will that be handled? I mean, if it's been there for 20 years, are they gonna just be able to continue doing what they're doing? There's some pretty sad things out there.
I think it would be easier if the places were vacant.
But it is another good talking point. It's something that as residents of Rutland Town, we all face at one point or another. What you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's another thing that is logical about hopefully seeing everybody agree with moving forward. So
Yeah.
some plans.
So say that again, Howard. How would you word it to the select board as a talking point?
Well, the problem areas that we have, are they gonna continue? Can they continue as they are, or will we have some teeth to
Like,
start putting a stop to it, whatever? Probably not clean it all up, but do something with it, because
You're talking
there's some,
about,
there's some places that, some of the neighborhoods, there's a lot of people that would just love to see, that we have zoning or some control to control this.
something to help that.
Something to help us. And now there's
'Cause right now I don't
nothing that can help. They continue to go on and on and on, and there's.
Worst case, it would prevent its spreading.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
Yeah,
true.
would stop it from getting any worse, I would hope. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sherman, I didn't hear all that.
I just said one of the worst things I don't mean that, at least if we had it, at least we could prevent it spreading as opposed to eliminating it. And that may be, I'm not saying forget eliminating, but I'm saying at least we could prevent it spreading.
For instance, Norman, if there's an existing junkyard out there that doesn't belong there,
Well, what I was trying to determine is if there's a consensus. Is the word public, does the word public nuisance resonate? And that we can't do anything about properties that are out of control, which are basically a nuisance to a neighborhood. But we have no way to address it. And with zoning, we may have some.
yeah, yeah.
We do have a public nuisance ordinance, I think.
Isn't another possible talking point with a select board? I know some people don't, it seems like some of them maybe aren't really on board with that, but this going from an acre to 9 acres, that we could have some. It just, that only seems logical to me. I mean, all of us have seen businesses come here and Act 250 got involved and they walked away. I mean, and it could even happen with something as big as this Walmart. Not that that would be beyond us, but
Yeah.
it'd be nice to see a couple acre parcel down in the back of South Main that we might have some leeway as to where that went.
Mhm.
We certainly don't right now.
Right. And yeah, you're talking about the Act 250.
Yes. So many sites have gone in, there's a few of them that stay just under an acre.
Yeah.
And they did what they wanted to, and even getting state highway permits, they managed to wiggle through that, even though the state didn't want them to get it. But I mean, I guess we just had no control, which we would have with zoning. You would change it's just, in the public, I'm sure would like to hear and be aware of what can happen going forward. Can their neighborhoods be improved and cleaned up or whatever?
I think that we talked about that, well, in that last meeting, I guess was the one before, about how important that was going to be, maybe to see the public have some, but that's jumping ahead too. I guess the next steps, to see if the select board.
But what about the polling that was taken? Does anyone remember the year that was done?
Boy, that was
Just-
15 years ago, probably.
It was essentially a straw poll.
Yeah, and
Right.
Andy, if depending on how many years he was been on, I remember him saying he had just started in the planning commission. So that would be a kind of a time frame.
So it was like, 70, 80% favorable
To some sort
to
of zoning.
zoning, and it actually started the process of creating zoning. Which didn't get past the select board. It was like the length and like 100 pages or something like that. or-
Yeah, that along with,
I wasn't here, so
I mean, I think Howard remembers there was a lot of political wrangling to set that aside. I mean, even, I don't know as the link necessarily was, people were necessarily against how the size of the document, although it was part of it, but it just kind of didn't get acted on and it went away.
Yeah.
Well, the board, but they were concerned with it, I guess, and they did cut back. They
Right.
cut down some on there. Supposedly we're still working on it. And the next thing you knew, I guess the time had run out and that was the end of it.
that was
Yeah,
another
it's fine.
factor, right? They had to act by a certain
Yeah, like a
90
year.
days or something. Yeah,
So
I'm
I'm sorry, go
I'm sorry,
ahead.
no, I'm
I'm just
absolutely.
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
those are all advantages of zoning. Not even, that doesn't even address the advantages we would have of having an ordinance that is legal and has us following procedures that we can enforce eventually. And we're not there now, and there are some risk there that
right.
we're trying to take care of, just in taking care of the subdivision ordinance.
It could just continue to get worse the way we're going. At least we
We have more,
could stop it at this point, so
yes,
from growing any
There's,
worse.
the sentiment that, I don't know if Howard, you hear this, but I hear it all the time. The sentiment that you can do anything you want in Rutland Town. That's okay, but only to the limit that it doesn't affect the neighbors, doesn't affect. So, I mean, there's some
Mhm.
real benefits and some logic to,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hear that often kind of in the construction trade. You don't need anything. You can do anything you want in Rutland Town. That's a little scary if you think about
it
it.
is, it is.
Well, look what happened just with the short-term rental ordinance,
Right.
you know, and there was strong favor and people understood that, you know, you can't use your property to damage your neighbor. And then there were other people who said, look, it's my property.
Right. Well, that's kind of that's the whole synopsis of why people get all upset with the zoning, right?
Zoning, yeah.
Nobody wants them to tell them what they can do with their property, but if everybody thought about what could happen next door to them, I just think there'd be some logic behind it, but.
Mary Beth, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I do think it's our responsibility to help with that balance. Yeah, and I think it's a reasonable thing. Most towns have it, and I really don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, I mean, take some work to create the document, but I think it's the right thing to do for a town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So is that, tell me again that, or tell us again, that's the next step is to go to the select board with a basic idea of reasons we think that maybe we should go that way? Is that what's
Well,
next?
yeah, I think, what I had in mind is I would, land that bombshell that we have something unenforceable, and then come back with some alternatives or an alternative, or, can we look into this?
And that kind of pulls in Kevin's.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, he makes it clear in his letter right on page 1. I mean, right in the very beginning of the letter, it's like, this ordinance is no good.
I think part of the, we ought to consider part of the presentation is that the council tells us we can't go forward with a subdivision regulation containing the current scope of land use control, because it's 30% zoning as it is.
Yeah.
Select board has managed to keep things their way for many, many, many years. And when they come time to talk about maybe we need a town manager. No, they want to manage. They want to manage. And that's what's going on. They're managing. They're trying to.
Right.
And that's
And that will be, besides the personal property rights, that will be another key argument against zoning, is that it's growing town governments, making it larger. It needs to be more bodies, more people making decisions. And it won't be the select board. It'll be the development review board, which we said.
And that was a big issue last time. That was one of the things that leaped out at everybody, but a bigger government, maybe a full-time position, at least at that point they were talking.
Yeah. I mean, Mary Beth, even with the Conservation Commission that you proposed a couple of years ago, I mean, that was the overriding sense I got. It's like, it was going to expand something, and, and they didn't want to be in charge of it. But they didn't want anyone else to be either.
Right. Well, one vocal member in particular, and a couple went along, yeah. But yeah,
Right.
that's the main.
A persuasive one.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
At one point, I remarked that, and I've generally been in favor of the zoning ordinance, that, there wasn't a lot of undeveloped property in town. And somebody said, maybe it was you, that they disagreed. And so I began keeping my eyes open as I rode up various town roads, Route 3. Chittenden Road,
East Pittsford. Yeah.
East Pittsford Road. You go out Route 4. And it's not just the land you see. I mean, there's a lot of land you don't see. And there is, and up Grove Street all the way to Pittsford. There's a huge amount of undeveloped land on both sides of the road. Now some of it may be in floodplain and can't be, I don't know, but there's a lot of land and you know, zoning will keep, there's a potential for keeping it, some of it undeveloped and providing some of it being developed. So I think I've given up or let go of that reservation, that there's not enough land to worry about and regulate. I've changed my mind.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe in some of the land use categories, like some of the commercial areas, industrial areas, are fuller than our residential. We have lots of residential parcels. Yeah.
We also have a decent amount of agricultural land and yeah,
Exactly.
not all of it in
No.
the floodplain.
Yeah. So these are good talking points. What should be our next ask? You know, what kind of permission or what specific permission do we want from the select board?
I think since Kevin said what he did, you know, about the subdivision regulations, it seems like they would hopefully give us an opportunity to at least start the process to see, you know what I mean, where we could go with it. You know, that would be my hope, is that they wouldn't just shut it right off at the first one. That would be,
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
that they might be
Do we
open-minded.
ask for, you know, can we go back and tell you how much this could cost the town? Is it time, should that be the first?
I think we need to consult with Kevin and, you know, just want permission to explore it. Explore what the options are if we were to proceed or consider enacting a zoning ordinance and get some guidance from Kevin about how to do it. Maybe bring back some proposals to the select board, a model ordinance, boilerplate ordinance provided by the planning commission, be a consultant to work with, get a recommendation from Kevin if he has one, who to go to.
I don't know, part of me thinks that's too big of a first step.
Well,
And-
go ahead. Once
No.
again, sorry, I just gonna say, I know me and Norm disagree about this all the time. Until they kind of give us I don't want anything to do with paying an attorney.
Yeah.
Until we get
Yeah.
further along. I think that's way too far
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me, it comes down to money, and I just don't see us spending any money to get that advice yet until we get the plan, until we get the select
Yeah.
board at least open-minded to where we're headed with it.
My comment assumed that they were open, that would be the next step. They said, yes, we want to consider it. Tell us how to go about it. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I agree. I just even think at that point, we're more than capable of taking this to another step beyond the select board saying we're open-minded. Then we get those things together before we start spending money. I mean, I think that's something we don't need to do right off. I just, you know,
I certainly think we would like to walk out of the meeting with an agreement that we'll go ahead with a next step that will further define what we want to do. We'll have more detail on what we want.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure, what I'm not sure about is, do we talk about the zoning issues immediately up front before at that first meeting? Or do we focus on the problems? I would focus on the problems with subdivision ordinance and the exposure that we as a municipality have
Right.
as a result of it, and it's really something that needs to be done. And we'd like to go ahead and work on it. I'm not, yeah,
Work on
work on what a solution, how we could come up with a solution, what the alternatives are. We could go so far as to say we've looked at other municipalities our size, but they all have zoning. Or we can just say initially their ordinance doesn't work for us.
Okay,
Uh,
so we say, here's Kevin's letter. And we'd like to look into alternatives to having just a bad subdivision ordinance.
Yes, but I think I would build a bigger case of the predicament we're in now,
Right.
and not what just is today, but what it could be. And how, because of where we are now, we're expanding it. Every time we do a new subdivision, we're adding to the predicament.
Liability or
The
whatever you
li-
want to
yeah,
call it,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was just hesitating to say all that, but I would, that's the reason we want to do something. And we think that we have not found a solution that doesn't include zoning, if we want to say that up front. Just so they have a heads up, we would like to go and look. Now, my feeling is that I wouldn't want to work on really developing something that has zoning without their knowing we're doing that. I mean, I'd like to say, here's a solution, here's what it is, here are the positives, here are the negatives. We want to go ahead. That's not the first step. That's maybe the third step. I'm not sure where it is.
Okay.
I agree with Sherman to the extent that we don't want to start drafting anything like a zoning ordinance until we get their concurrence that it's necessary. I think the way to do that is to highlight the portions of Kevin's letter that say, this goes into zoning, this is unenforceable. Basically, if anybody chooses to litigate, at least 24 provisions of the subdivision ordinance, they're going to be successful. It's basically full of problems. That it will, according to Kevin, it's unlikely that it would withstand litigation.
Mhm.
And we're at a crossroads. We have something that's not enforceable and not workable. And we've been fortunate to date because the types of development that we've experienced hasn't called it into question. We've dodged the bullet to date.
Right.
I will get away from that. I'm like,
And if they agree, if they agree to us going to the next step and they say, well, what would be that next step? What are you proposing? What's our answer?
We'd like to look. We'd like to explore it and get back to them.
Like to explore fixing the subdivision ordinance.
If they're in favor of zoning, we'd like to explore how best to proceed.
I'm not quite sure how we're going to get from Kevin's letter to they're in favor of zoning
Mhm.
in one meeting. I'm not sure they're going to make that leap. They
Likely. It's likely they should read it and we should expect them not to make the leap. I
Can
know
I,
that I went through,
Sorry.
yeah,
so
So I think it's a shame that we had to go into executive session when Kevin was there, because I just think it made so much sense coming from him and the points made, just, I think I know we don't want to spend a lot of money, but if we could just have him there in the meeting to explain in his words, I think that would be a lot more persuasive. 'Cause what I really wouldn't want to do is go there, make a case, and then they say no again. I think it would, should try to like bring everything that we can to that one meeting
Yeah.
I think just having it directly from him, just basically saying, we can't, even he would have trouble, even Kevin would have trouble turning the ordinance into something that made sense without doing zoning.
Mhm. Yep. That's a good suggestion.
So Mary Beth, now that's where I don't mind spending the money, because I agree. I mean, it was so logical the way he laid it. You can't keep going like this. I mean, he was saying, and I know that may be difficult to get him to,
He was very frank with us.
yeah, he was. And
And I'm not sure he would be that, I
Oh.
mean, maybe in another executive session, but I'm not convinced. But if he was half that frank.
Right.
well, but he was pretty persuasive on, you need to do something beyond this. This
Yeah.
isn't working.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
But the problem is that it will fall short. What he believes we can do will fall significantly short of what the subdivision ordinance attempts to do now.
How do you mean?
Well, I can't give you chapter and verse, but he said, this isn't enforceable. This creeps into zoning,
Right,
that kind of thing.
yeah,
So if we were to come up with a subdivision ordinance and cut out all the stuff that he does, we would have zero control over any number of different facets of property use,
Right.
property development.
well, I think we can make that argument, or Kevin can make that
Yeah,
argument.
and I thought we had made a decision that we're not gonna redo our ordinance because it's an ungodly amount of work.
Right,
So kind of
And
waste.
even he suggested, do it some other way, don't try to fix this. So that I don't think that's an issue at all. We're not gonna do that. That's not our approach. But I think we have to get them to want a new subdivision ordinance. The select board. And I really think the pressure is, we stay with this and the consequences are we go and try to do something else. And maybe they decide. I mean, we can expand on the disadvantages of what we have now and the problems with it and the risks with it. I mean, that can be a couple pages of explanation. And then that's it. Do we stay? We have no solution so far. The solutions we've looked at haven't worked for us. Now, I do have one question about that. The Bethel one of the suggestions was a Bethel's
Bristol.
Bristol, I think.
Bristol, I'm sorry, take Bristol's ordinance and because Bristol doesn't have zoning, is that correct?
No, they do,
do.
they have a unified, but, so it's both zoning and subdivision, and I think there was special flood hazard area,
Okay. Good.
regulations in
And
there.
I think Kevin said that
Yeah.
they just recently did that. Like they were
Yes.
similar to us.
Yeah,
And he recently helped them. Well, he's on their board, but
Right,
and I missed a little bit. Forget what I said.
yeah.
well, I won't keep, I realize it's way down the road, and I'm not necessarily against a 60 page type thing. It would be great if we could find something we could do a limited amount of work on. If we found something that was real similar to our situation and
Mhm.
without doing so much that it's, because
Yeah,
that happened to us with that last time. It started out, why don't we just do this? And then somebody wanted this expanded and we took it to the plan. I think we took it to the select board and they said, well, you can't do that unless you do that. And all of a sudden it just grew exponentially. I mean, it just grew out of control. And then they were mad because it was too big, or not mad, but disappointed.
yeah,
I didn't read the Bristol ordinance word for word, but I looked at it and looked at the areas that it was addressing to regulate. And it was very thorough, very well organized. And I think provided good guidance to to property users and to the town. And that's really the objective. What we're trying to do is provide guidance to landowners and to the town to provide for orderly and manageable growth that respects property rights and respects people's rights. And I don't think the amount of pages really is significant. If it's clear and fairly easily readable and understandable, that's what that would fill that job.
Yeah, it's 116 pages.
About 20 pages, Barbara, is definitions.
Right.
I don't have it with me.
And if we add other ordinances, that just adds to the length, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just zoning and subdivision. They didn't add others. What I can tell. Okay, I think we've arrived at the point where we're going to give Kevin Brown's letter to the select board. And we are requesting that he meet with them, with us, we all meet together, or he be at a future select board meeting to essentially go through what he went through with us. That's our ask, our initial ask, in so many words.
That makes sense to me. Getting us all, giving them the information we have now. Telling them where we see where we are and proposing both bodies get together with Kevin and develop a plan forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Does that make sense, Jerry?
or it could just be the select board, since since they haven't heard any of this in detail yet,
Well, if they'll have the letter,
right?
well, play it by ear.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
they'll have the letter, they'll have our position. Ask them what they would do. Would they rather meet with us and Kevin, or would they rather meet with Kevin themselves?
When we mentioned the letter, is that the first letter he sent with a breakdown of the problems
Yeah.
with what we have
Mhm.
now and how,
mm-hmm.
20 some pages long.
I mean, realistically, to give that to select board, you expect them to read it? I mean,
No.
just realistic, not that whether or not they should, but
But he does get to the point right at the beginning.
okay.
He says it's unenforceable, and then he says, if you want to patch stuff, and then he went through various, then it's a whole list of why it's unenforceable, right? Section by section.
So maybe if we were gonna give them something, we give them something that would highlight the important, I mean, there's stuff in there that says there's work to be done, but the thing we want people to know is what risk that we have in continuing this way. And whether the solution, not discussing the solution, but what is the risk? Where are we now? And I think until we get them to really understand and talk about the risk, they're gonna think it's just a matter of shuffling ordinances around and coming up with the
Okay.
right solution. Happen not to have the letter handy.
But I think that's where his presence would come in,
Yeah, absolutely.
him being at the meeting.
Need to ask him about it too, before you. He needs to be ready to sell it.
Right. Right. Okay. Anything else on that topic? Okay, thanks, everybody. We've got the pocket park here on the agenda. So I went to the select board and said, here's our list for phase one. And we would like to sit down with Mike Rowe and start mapping this out. Mary and Sharon Russell, who's the Recreation Committee, I think it's just her, would like to be part of that discussion. So thinking we invite them to one of our meetings, the three of them. Our next meeting is not until the June
July.
19th.
19, yeah.
June what?
19th. Does that sound like a good time for that meeting?
In deference to me, you could refer to it as Juneteenth if you want.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll ask about that. Any announcements? Okay, let's move down to the minutes of May 8th. And does anyone need to abstain?
I do.
I do.
Oh, I
And
should.
Mary- Yeah, okay. So we have, uh-oh.
People do.
We don't have enough. Okay, we'll table the minutes of May 8th to a future meeting. All right,
Motion we adjourn.
I said.
okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And let me there's two ends.